Welcome to Your Career Podcast. If you're looking for inspiration in your career or job search, you're at the right place. I'm Jane Jackson, your career management coach and author of Navigating Career Crossroads. For more career advice and support, go to janejacksoncoach.com and find all you need to create the career of your dreams. Welcome to episode 259 of Your Career Podcast. In today's rapidly changing world of work, interim leadership roles are on the rise. What are interim executives? An interim executive is an experienced C-suite level leader recruited to fill a leadership vacancy. Responsibilities and focus vary on the position depending on the current needs of the organization. Interim CEOs, for example, are a smart, short-term strategic move while an organization prepares for a long-term leadership change. In this episode of Your Career Podcast, I speak with Caroline McAuliffe, a senior partner at Watermark Search International, who specialises in interim executive search, helping organizations find and deploy senior C-suite executives with deep functional and leadership expertise for short-term projects or roles. Now, for Caroline, she has over 18 years of experience in interim executive search, and she leads the interim executive team in Sydney, serving a diverse range of sectors, including ASX 300, government, for-purpose, human services, higher education, infrastructure, transport, energy, utilities, industrials, and manufacturing. She is extremely passionate about enabling organizational transformation and performance improvement through interim executive solutions. She's also the co-author of The Rise of the Interim Executive, an award-winning book for executives who want to explore and succeed in the interim executive marketplace. Now, let's discover more about executive interim leadership roles and be inspired by Caroline's fascinating career journey and career insights. And now let's welcome Caroline McAuliffe to the show. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I'm really excited to be here and to share my story.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it, because I've been looking forward to having you on the show for a long time.
Thank you.
Because you're with Watermark and it's interim search, and everyone is wondering about how can I make a career change? How can I transition into this new way of working? We'll find out all about interim executive search soon, but just to kick us off, let's find out about you and your career journey and how you got into it. So when you were a little girl, Caroline, what were your early career aspirations?
Gosh, let me cast my mind back. When I was a very little girl, I was all about wanting to be a Charlie's Angel, actually. Wanting to fight crime and bring justice to the world. So that was when I was a very little girl. You'd see me in the playground running around trying to be a Charlie's Angel. And then as I got older and into school, I was always an avid reader of books and a bit of a nerd. You'd find me at the library after school, nose and head in a book. Loved reading, loved stories, loved narrative, and I loved all the art subjects at school. So English literature, religion, history, that really was for me. Sociology later. I kind of loved and had a passion for understanding what made people tick. And I guess today it's psychology, that's where, and that's since then I've gone on to, qualify in those areas of coaching and psychology and career development. And, but back then it was, I had no idea that that's where I was heading. I just knew that I loved that. And then I worked from the age of 14, Jane, in different Saturday jobs, and I come from a working class background. My parents are Irish, grew up in West London though, Loved growing up in London. It was the centre of everything, I thought, at the time. And really enjoyed growing up there, but also spent every summer back in rural Ireland on the southwest coast with my family there. And so very different, one end of the spectrum to the other, farming communities. So I had a lovely childhood, actually, dipping into both that, the frenzy of London and then the very quiet rural area. And then the work that I was doing for a local company, they made me an offer of a job when I was 17, and I decided to take it because I was really interested in business and commerce, and I was essentially the executive assistant to the managing director immediately of this business. And I'd learned all about, how business was working. I'd worked across accounts and payroll and human resources at that very young age. And so I got into that very young. And I wanted to buy a car. I'd passed my driving license and I wanted money to burn. And I wanted to buy a house. I was very sensible from day, very young. And in fact, I did buy my first house by the time I was 20. So my 20s was very sensible. I was very focused on, getting a great job, advancing in my career. And I did go on then to 2 or 3 different businesses as the executive assistant to the managing director of different businesses. One was in, the next company was in real estate, commercial real estate. I had a love for property and everything about surveying property. And so it was really, fun working there, leading a team of admin assistants and executive assistants across that business. And then I had an opportunity to go and work for an amazing man who was a property developer in Mayfair in the centre of London. And it was in the late 80s, early 90s, and things were just going off in the property market. And it was so much fun. And he worked with high net worth individuals selling and buying and selling property. So I got to be exposed to some really high key people in the market. And our claim to fame at that time was that we actually sold the last mansion house in the Grosvenor estate in Mayfair to the Sultan of Brunei. And it was an amazing time. It was wild and so exciting. Unfortunately, there was a downturn in the market, and I then moved into a business called Technicolor. Technicolor, as you may know, are famous for bringing colour to movies in Hollywood. And it was a very fun, very different environment, but working for the Vice President of Europe there, got exposed to a whole new industry and really loved and enjoyed that. And then 6 months later, I moved to Sydney. I had a partner who was Australian, had been with him for 5 years, and he was a TV director, and he wanted to go back to Sydney to start up Sky News in Sydney. I'd never been. It was a big adventure for me. And I said, you can't stop me. Wild horses wouldn't stop me. And it was so exciting to land in Sydney in 1995. And I worked for a couple of companies, Vodafone being one, again in the executive office, working with the sales director there. And then I got the opportunity to go work for 20th Century Fox over at Fox Studios and back into entertainment and media, which I had a passion for. And I was working there as the manager of the executive office for the CEO. And that was really pivotal for me, Jane, at that point, because that CEO was very forward thinking. He wrote a book, Steve Johnston, and the book was all about when he became CEO, what responsibility and accountability did he have? And he wanted to build a values-based organization. He's actually runs the leadership practice for Corn Ferry now. So even then, back then, he was very interested in building a values-based culture. I was able to work alongside him as he wrote his book, and we kind of built this culture at Fox, and it was a wonderful experience. And he basically said to me, Caroline, I think that you are meant for bigger, better things, but please don't leave me. Just write your own job description. You tell me what you want to do. And it gave me the opportunity to go and do some study in HR. I had a real interest in the human resources and people side and cultural side of an organisation. So I went and did that. And then I was given the opportunity to work in every function of that business. So from finance to operations to sales, marketing, PR. I dipped into it all. And that gave me a view and insight into how a business operates and the different roles and structures of an organization. I also did the recruitment and hiring and values based interviewing technique that we developed. So it was kind of that kind of insight that provided me. Thank you, Steve, for giving me that opportunity, because that really did help me then understand where I wanted to go next. And I was quite entrepreneurial. I've always been quite entrepreneurial. And I went off and had my first baby, Johnny. I got married, and I didn't want to go back to the kind of 2IC role. I wanted to lead something. I wanted to own something. So I actually set up a small business called Virtual Angels with an ex-colleague from Fox. And together we built this idea, and we were way before our time. But it was all about helping women in particular who were off on maternity leave and wanted extended leave to be with their children at home. At that time in Australia, there was no mat leave coverage. You obviously had your job kept for you, and I was outraged. I was like, how can we manage? We need two incomes. So the idea and purpose behind that organization was to help women work from home in their capacity on a part-time basis. But unfortunately, it didn't fly at that time. We were way before our time. It would fly now, absolutely. And since then, of course, you've seen the likes of freelancer.com grow. And of course, Interim Executive, what I do is the executive level of placement in that way. So I then, though, was asked to go in and help a small executive search firm set up an interim practice. And I thought, what is this interim thing? Did lots of research and looked to the UK market in particular and Europe market, where this had been a thing for about 40 years. And so it grown as a professional and a very credible career for executives to move into. But it was widely unheard of here. It was really concept at the time. That was in 2004, 2005. And I went in and, when the perfect storm happens, when all of your skills and experience come together and my entrepreneurial spirit, they wanted me to help grow this practice. And I'm very naturally a good networker. So I built a really good network, even in my capacity at Fox. And so therefore, and I'm quite good at business development and growth. So that was all key to growing this new practice out of this boutique search firm. And I thought to myself, wow, what an opportunity to not only grow a company or an organisation, but to grow an industry in Australia. And I grabbed it with both hands, and the rest is history, so to speak.
It was really good timing, wasn't it? Because you're absolutely right about
Yes.
interim executives. Because years ago, people used to think if I can't find a permanent role, I'll
Mm,
take an interim role. So it
mm,
was almost like a stopgap.
mm.
However, I've noticed there's this big trend now, especially after COVID, where more
Yes.
people want to have that flexibility and control as well.
Yes.
They're actually actively seeking interim roles.
They are.
Yeah, Caroline, your career history is fascinating
Thank you.
because, you know, because from Ireland to the middle of London, and I mean, very exciting having a farming
Mm,
background as well as a city background as well,
yeah.
and then developing in so many different industries. What you've
Mm,
done actually has prepared you so well for exactly what you do now, because
exactly.
with
Mm.
Watermark and Interim Search, you handle roles in all industries and you have an
Yes.
understanding across multiple industries
Yes.
firsthand as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it was when I first got into this, and everyone says if you're a recruiter, I fell into this quite by accident. And I think a lot of people do. They don't set out to be a recruiter.
Mm.
Um, but you don't only need a little bit of knowledge about each sector. You don't have to be an expert in the field. It's a little bit like being an executive coach, isn't it, Jane? It's
Mm.
almost like listening. And interestingly, there's so many functionally that there's so many transferable skill sets that you can apply. And of course, that's what we encourage, out there with our clients, is to think more broadly about not being putting someone in a box necessarily, but
Mm.
opening up their minds to the kind of creative thinking and innovative thinking that can come out of someone's experience cross sector or in different function or broadening out. So yeah, it's you're right though. I mean, when I first went in and I was meeting all of these amazing executives who were hitting a certain age, around 50 plus,
Mhm.
and they were talking to me and they said, I've become invisible, Caroline, out there. Ageism was alive and well. I'm
Mm.
not so sure it is as bad now. I feel like we have come forward in our thinking about age and ageism. And so now for me, I was the reason and purpose I put behind, not only growing an industry or growing a company, but listening to their stories. I wanted to turn that on its head and make all, because in my mind, we're at the pinnacle of their
Mm.
offering,
Mm.
not should not become invisible. In fact, their offering now was the power that they had to for an organization. And so that's what I wanted to turn that completely on its head and make sure that they were seen as in fact, their age and maturity and seasoned expertise would be a superpower for
I
them.
100% agree, because the more wisdom you've gained through the years of experience, you can impart so much into the next role as well. And
Mhm.
although there is equal opportunity employment, diversity and inclusion, everyone's, very much, we're embracing all cultures. I
Yes.
find though, and this is, with the mid to senior executives that I'm working with who've gone
Mm.
through a redundancy because of organizational change, there is still quite a strong perception that there is ageism in the workplace. And I tell them that if you believe that is true, it will be true for you.
Yes.
However, if you don't focus on the age and you focus more on the solutions that you provide to
Yes.
a particular organization, and you can prove that you can turn things around, that's what's
Yes.
going to make you valuable. And I
Yes.
think many people, when they've gone through any sort of organizational change and their roles have been affected, it affects their self-confidence and they think, am I still the same capable professional that I was before?
Yeah.
You found that when you meet executives who are searching now?
Totally. So my core value is hope
Mm.
and freedom, of choice. That's what I want to bring people. And I want to leave them feeling very much more positive than when we first met, going away, because I dispel all of those myths that they may
Mm.
have the voice in their head. Because for us in interim, That's their superpowers, right? But it's defining it. They need to own it and define what it is that they are what are their superpowers. And they can do that by, they may have been in one career, one pathway, one organization for many years, or they have naturally evolved, been headhunted over and over. So they've not actually been faced with going into, and this is a very different market that they're facing now. And of course, a very different way of presenting yourself as a interim executive as to, what you've been used to traditionally. So you would have had, of course, your resume talks all about your leadership, skills, ability. But what we ask people to do is really think more granular about these superpowers. What sets you apart from the crowd? What is it that you've done most recently that's very important, your currency around, and it's usually around, tell us about, the event, the business event that you've taken a business through. So for example, if you're a CFO, perfect, great. But what did you do most recently? What event did you take that organization through that our clients would be looking to engage you for a very similar piece of work? So that's why we try and get very granular, and we provide lots of resources that are thought starters for them around that. But it's also up to them to own this and be very clear. And that's when they come and work with you, Jane, is to actually, isn't it, be very clear about what it is that you are great at. What is your superpowers? Where are you skill stacked for many years now? Articulate that to me so that I understand, and also bring into that your passions and your purpose. Meaningful work has become the number one reason
Absolutely.
for people to want, when they come to us, it's not about the money anymore, because they're usually at a stage of life and career now where the big ticket items have been taken care of. They're off the table, right? Hopefully, the mortgage is under control, the kids' school fees, another big ticket item, and they've moved on, and hopefully through that. So now you're given the chance to actually create your own career. Where do you want to work? Why do you want to work? When? For how long? And you can start to build your audit, if you like, around, you need to sit there and audit. What is it that I want to do? How much time do I have to work? What are my passions outside of work? So that's the paid part of my portfolio. But what else do I want to be spending time on now? And it's got to be, health, family, passion, hobbies, not your pro bono piece to your portfolio. I might want to do board work, governance boards. I might want to do advisory boards. So you start to build this beautiful portfolio and plan. And then you come to us and you say, this is the part of the plan, my plan for paid work in interim. This is what it looks like. I might be available 5 days a week for 6 months, and then I might take a month off, go travel, find my joy, and then come back and do my next gig. And then, and that's perfect. If you have had that self-awareness, the self-reflection piece, you really need to do that before you come see us.
Yeah, I think the important thing is, so often when people go through a change, they have a little bit of a wobble with their self-confidence, regardless of what senior executive role they've ever held.
Yeah.
Things happen to them. There is a change. And then they think, what else can I do? Am I still relevant in today's marketplace?
Yes.
And if they're not sure as to what the value is that they actually bring to a role, it's almost impossible to sell themselves into a role. So you're absolutely right about understanding where they're at a particular time. I have like a life inventory that I like to take people through. So it's their health, relationships, finances, career, as well as their physical environment and where they can really thrive, and what they've been tolerating in their lives, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and tying it all together with satisfiers and motivators, etc. And also the legacy that they ultimately would like to leave.
Yeah.
Then once they're clear with that, coming to you and say, here I am, this is me on a plate.
Totally.
This is what I want to target. What do you think? Then you can get to work and find just the right roles. So as you work for senior executives and you're making these senior executive interim placements,
Yes.
what have you found has been most in demand most recently?
So there's always been two functional areas of demand for us, and that's never changed. But the top two changed. Chief People Officer and the Chief Financial Officer roles have been most in demand over the years that I've worked in interim. And it's all the facets of those functional roles and all the events and special expertise that you can bring to an event that is going through. So during COVID, the CPO role was the most in demand for us. We placed a third of our placements was in the HR CPO people space. No surprises. We were going through the most unprecedented health crisis the world had ever seen, and we just didn't know. I think people were like, I was frozen. So actually, it was interesting because this interim whatever function you were in, if you were out working as an interim at that point in time, you'd think that based on tradition, that when you're in a crisis, the contracting workforce would be the first to be let go because we're back to basics and we're in survival mode, right? However, they were not. They were extended through this period of time because what they brought, regardless of their functional expertise, but particularly the people role, was this seasoned approach. We have been in crisis before, not this type of crisis. It's unprecedented, but they drew on all of their experience from before to calm the farm. Let's keep heads, carry on, we'll work through it. And their calmness and experience and seasoned maturity was so well regarded through that people were hanging on to them through that because they were the voice of reason and understanding about how we cope during this time. So that was wonderful to see. And I love the fact that the people role, which has been dumbed down somewhat over the years as a more operational role, was elevated straight back up to the executive and board table. And it stayed there, through that. So I'm very pleased about that, to see that truly a strategic partnering role with the CEO, CFO, and the board. They're the key. That's the triangle I'm seeing, the golden triangle, 1, 2, and 3 demand areas: CEO, CFO, chief people. However, coming up fast is the chief digital, chief data, cyber security, everything technology.
Yes.
ChatGPT and the like, AI, is unprecedented in the uptake and the impact it's going to have on all of our lives already and our working lives in particular. So you see that coming.
Yeah, it's so interesting the way that the roles have changed and the demand has changed so much. And especially, although AI, machine learning, has been around for donkey's years, the past 2 years, the buzz about that is so great. And everybody is now aware of how AI and ChatGPT has actually affected many, many roles. And consequently, businesses have been restructuring and looking at ways that, we can save costs now because of AI, which I think it's good to embrace new technology and to understand it, but it also has opened up a whole can of worms, hasn't it?
Totally.
And so you're right about, chief digital officer, cybersecurity being very, very much in demand. I'm predicting that that's going to just soar over the next year or so, because people have realized how we don't understand this as well as we should. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyone who is up to speed in that area would be good. Now, you've written a fabulous book.
Yes.
Rise of the Interim Executive.
Yes.
So you've written this book so that people can understand why this sector is so important. Tell
Mhm.
me a little bit more about this book and why you
Yeah.
wrote it and the key takeaways from the book.
Thank you so much, Jane. Yes, it all came about during COVID, actually, early, or actually just pre-COVID.
Mm.
My partner, Jacinta Whelan, and she is the lead partner for Interim in our Melbourne office, and she has many years' experience, as I do, in the interim industry. And we sat down over lunch one day and decided that we'd like to co-author a book around the rise of the interim executive. We're asked over those 20 years experience each from every day, how do I go about this? So we've got this joint kind of wisdom that we wanted to share and impart by writing this book. So, then COVID hit, and we actually wrote it, co-authored it online. Jacinta in Melbourne, myself in Sydney, and we happily released it in 3 years ago now, in 21. Our company Watermark were very supportive and had a launch party for us, and it went off, and it's even more valid today, I think, post COVID, and so much has changed. And with the world of work, the future of work has all been determined. There's so many things that we're actually embarking on the next book, which takes us to new learnings. But this one has been really useful for it's kind of like pulling all together the environment. It's the 3 E's framework: the environment, why there has been a rise in the world of interim executive from both an organizational point of view and the kind of people who want to work this way around the world. The experience, why do organizations look to bring interims in? And what's your experience, your superpowers? And we provide some toolkits and some voices throughout the book of very seasoned interim executives giving all of their tips and tricks too about how to do it well. The first question we ask, though, Jane, is this for you? Because it's not for everyone. This is not a gap filler like you alluded to earlier, that you just do as your next gap fill to your next permanent role necessarily. It is actually a conscious career change and decision. Of course, we do have people and executives that we work with who are on both pathways. And more recently, the conversation's been around, I'm not so bothered about the contract type. I'm more interested in the meaningful work, the challenging work, the variety of work, the flexibility it provides me. But if a permanent role comes up, I'm happy to look at that too. So we're actually in a kind of, there are those career portfolio professionals, and then there are those in transition. And that's almost moving into a different offering, which is around executives on demand. So it's an interesting what's happened there, dynamic that's happened there for us. And we're thinking about that, how we can offer that too as a service offering. But if we focus on those that are choosing this, running towards this as a career transition, that book asks you that question: is this the right career move for me? Because it will be the most challenging work you'll ever do. It is not a quiet place to go for an early retirement and just earn a few quid, to bolster the retirement fund. By no means. It is quite intense for the period of time that you are there. But most of the people we work with, they want that. They love the challenge. But they know they've not bought in for 3 to 5 years. They are there for a very end-to-end, clearly defined piece of work with very, outcomes that they can achieve. And then they, take a break, basically, which is something we don't do ordinarily.
Yeah, you know what I find is really interesting is that I was thinking, as you're saying this, is that people who have as a career anchor, their true top career anchor is challenge, it would be so appealing because
It
they
is.
know I'm being brought in to ensure there's a specific result because
Yeah.
there is a problem. And so you come in, you can assess what's going on, you use and leverage your skills and experience to
Yes.
fix it. So
Yes.
basically, you're coming in to fix a problem. And if
Yes.
challenge is truly what draws you, you would thrive in this environment. It
You
would be
would.
very
And I
exciting.
get that feedback
Mm,
all the time.
mm.
A, I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. And B, I'm never going back to
Caroline,
the.
yeah, Caroline, Watermark have a wonderful survey called the Interim Executive Survey. Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about the survey.
Yeah, so for the past 14 years, we have been surveying interim executives working in the Australian market. We asked them some very pertinent questions, which has built over 14 years some amazing, and it's the only Australian data available to the market that informs us all and the industry as to a number of different scales, number of different data points. And so 14 years now, it's been underway, and we're about to release our 14th year survey into the market. And never before have we seen the number of participants in the taking the survey.
Mm,
So that gives us a very good indication that there's this growth and rise. And anecdotally, we are seeing more. Our team has grown because of the capacity. We've gone from one or two partners to now 6 partners
mhm.
dedicated to the interim practice across Australia, and a wonderful support team. So we are able to, manage and continue to be number one, I suppose, in the market. And you'll see other players come into this market who are offering search firms who are offering the interim now. So it's quite satisfying that we were kind of like sniffed at and frowned at a few years ago as being the new kid on the block. And it wasn't real search and it wasn't executive permanent work. And now we're kind of taking the lead
Mhm.
out there.
You're the
And
pioneers. Watermark are the pioneers of
yes,
senior interim
absolutely.
executive search.
Yeah. And we want to keep that. And I think we're quite, there's no more bigger depth of database available to our clients in Australia currently because we've been doing it so long. So it's happy days that we
Yes.
continue
Well,
to lead the way,
yeah, and people will want to get their hands on the results of these surveys.
for
So
sure.
tell us, where can we get the results?
So we are currently, so all of the 13 past years are available on our website at watermarksearch.com.au,
Mhm,
and you can download all of the findings there. And then this year's survey will be released around mid-July.
mhm.
So we will, what we always do is hopefully get a piece in the media. We put it out as a press release. It does get picked up by the media, but we also post it through LinkedIn. It's available there, and it will always be available in the library on our website.
Oh, that's fabulous. What I'm going to do, Caroline, is put into the show notes at janejacksoncoach.com/podcast, where we'll find this interview, all the links to Watermark Search, your
Perfect.
survey, as well as links to your book, The Rise of the Interim Executive,
Thank
because I
you.
think many people are going to be so interested in this. Before I let you go, Caroline, because I know you're a busy lady, what would you recommend to senior executives who are thinking about transitioning into being an interim executive as a career path? Because I
Yeah.
think that as a portfolio career, it's a great choice, isn't it?
It is an
Because
absolute
you
great
can draw
choice.
upon so many different experiences to get the
Mm,
next assignment,
mm,
the next
mm.
assignment. But what's your one big tip for anyone who's considering this?
I think it really is to find a great coach like you, Jane, to actually work with, to actually determine, do the audit, right? Understand yourself, what your superpowers are, what your boundaries are, have a really good idea about what your superpowers are,
Mm,
and understand that this transition, really just to answer that question, key question, is this for me? I mean, you can look at the book. That's a really great resource.
Yeah.
There are toolkits in there. There's a questionnaire in there actually as well. And it's also available on the Watermark website that prompts you to really think about that. You know, there's some really pertinent questions there that it will ask you, to draw out, you know, what you truly want. I think to understand your meaning, what meaningful work means to you, and be very clear about that. Once you understand your superpower, so combined with your purpose and your meaning and what you want out of work, what does paid work look like for you? And I think also to really make, I mean, we talk about ikigai, understand, you know, that concept of ikigai and what is it, you know, that's the kind of audit, isn't it? That sense of meaning and purpose that you want. That's so important for everyone now. But also your health. I think we don't think enough about how important and really the priority in our life should be health. I've hit a certain age personally, and I have changed so many things in my life. I had my children late in life, so I want to be around. Longevity, that whole idea of the 100-year life or the longer life and longer working life is really important to think about now. And the earlier you start thinking about it, the better. But I think health is a really important thing that we need to really make a priority for ourselves, because we are going to be working longer, yes, on our terms, and we can tailor that and own that. But I just, that would be my advice, is to really be, you know, it's important to think about your health too, I think, because without that, nothing else will happen and work.
You know, it absolutely hits the nail on the head for me as well, because I have reached quite an advanced certain age too. And now my aim in life, because I feel that I've achieved so many things in my life and I love what I do. Coaching is just the most joyous experience because you can help so many people.
Yeah.
But now my big aim in life is to be around for my grandsons when they turn 21. I want to be there for their 21st birthday, and I want to be able to dance at it.
That's it. Well done. I can't, there's always room for dancing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you're absolutely right. Without our health and without a positive attitude towards everything that life throws us, it's almost impossible to create that happy life.
Yes.
And I think that with the help that you provide at Watermark to help executives to get those interim roles and be able to fulfill their career anchor, to be able to earn a living, to be able to do the purposeful work, that's what life is all about.
It is. It is. And I think we forget it. Sometimes we forget about that as we've gone on our career journey. We've been very focused, of course, on, you know, the job. And it's only when we raise our head out of that space that need for reflection comes about, I think.
Yes. You know, I want to tell the listeners, you must follow Caroline McAuliffe on LinkedIn because she provides so much wonderful advice. Read the book, The Rise of the Interim Executive. Get the results of the survey from the Interim Executive Survey from Watermark Search, and really prepare yourself for the next step in your career. Thank you so much, Caroline. I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's
loved it.
Great finding out about your career journey.
Thank you, Jane.
As well as giving some really good tips for people who are in the job search or thinking about transitioning into interim executive work as the next step in their career.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you again, Jane, for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today. For affordable career help, please check out my Career Success Program. I provide a unique blend of online and live career coaching to help you take control of every aspect of your career or career change. If you aren't where you want to be in your career, let's talk. Check it out at thecareersacademy.online. The links are in my show notes.